Good boy. All right.
Melanie.
Oh, hey, Jason.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. I didn't know you were back in LA.
Yeah. Had a pretty amazing trip. I mean, it was unreal.
Really? I can't wait to hear about it.
No, I have, like, a lot to tell you.
What is it?
Come on. Do you remember the 90s?
Yeah.
You know, people were talking about getting piercings and getting tribal tattoos.
Yeah.
And people were singing about saving the planet and forming bands.
Yeah.
There's a place where that idea still exists as a reality, and I've been there.
Where is it?
Portland.
Oregon?
Yeah.
Dream of the 90s is alive. Portland, Portland, Portland. The dream of the 90s is alive. Portland, Portland. Tattoo ink never runs dry.
Remember when people were content to be unambitious, to sleep till 11, and just hang out with their friends? I mean, they had no occupations whatsoever, maybe working a couple hours a week at a coffee shop.
Right. I thought that died out a long time ago.
Not in Portland. Portland is a city where young people go to retire.
Dream of the 90s is alive. Portland. All the hot girls wear glasses.
Yeah.
Remember in the 90s when they encouraged you to be weird? It was just an amazing time where people would go to see something like the Jim Rose Sideshow Circus and watch someone hang something from their penis. You could grow up to want to be a clown. Like, people went to clown school.
I gave up clowning years ago.
Oh, in Portland, you don't have to.
Dream of the 90s is alive. Portland.
Sleep till 11.
You'll be in heaven.
The dream of the 90s is alive in Portland.
What is a hipster? It's a word that is thrown around a lot in today's society, but is there a concrete definition? When the word hipster is typed into Google, the definition shows up as, the hipster subculture typically consists of white millennials living in urban areas. A person who follows the latest trends and fashions, especially those regarded as being outside the cultural mainstream.
What is your definition of the word hipster?
I feel like it's somebody who's like not mainstream, so like someone who wears like really tight skinny jeans, like a beanie, glasses without like any prescription on them, like carries like a pen or a cigarette behind their ear, you know, maybe has like a couple tattoos of like, I don't know, like a dream catcher or something that like they find like deep meaning when it's real, like it could be like a spoon and they can be like, oh, this is like the spoon of our people. We are the people, so we need to bring and forth feed. I don't know, something like that. Something like philosophical that I will never understand.
Hipster to me is what I would define as today's version of the hippie or the counterculture person in society, someone that tries to defy what is mainstream and try to find their own way. And I guess the public perception of this tends to be pretentious, but by definition it's just going against what's normal or valued by society, I guess.
So it appears that the dictionary definition of a hipster is someone who does not follow the trends of mainstream society. The hipsters of the 1990s started out as counterculture, with people who valued independent thinking, art, and indie and alternative music. They rejected popular clothing shops and usually went to vintage and thrift shops. Both men and women could sport similar androgynous hairstyles, whereas the mainstream women saw this type of hairstyle as too edgy. According to Urban Dictionary, men were not expected to be bigger or stronger than women. In fact, heterosexual hipster women would not usually be attracted to overly muscular and athletic men, since they were seen as symbols of sexism and misogyny. Hipsters stayed away from unrealistic ideals of beauty portrayed in mainstream advertising and media. The 90s hipsters can be compared to Ryder's discussion of the children of Colpiad, who are able to transcend gender norms in their community. Girls can go into the man's domain, and boys can go into the women's domain. Hipsters were not boxed into a certain image. Both males and females could wear the same style of clothing, listen to the same music, and have the same body structure. Over time, however, the hipster counterculture has become more like a subculture of society. People who call themselves hipsters today are merely copying the hipster image of the 1990s, ironically destroying their identity of a true hipster. Today, the word hipster is a paradox. Dressing and acting like a hipster is becoming the mainstream. In some sense, the term hipster is taking on a new meaning, which includes being hip and aware of the latest trends. In the 90s, hipsters were less concerned with the ideal body image, but if you look up the word hipster in Google Images today, Almost all of the girls are white and extremely thin. In Popeno's Ideal, she discusses how in Niger, young girls' central purpose in life at this stage is to make their blossoming young bodies sexually attractive and beautiful. In this part of the world, the ideal is to be large, but in the United States, women want to be thin because society tells them that is what men want. Today's hipsters follow this trend of the ideal body, especially regarding women. The photos of women that come up when searching the word hipster are portrayed as very slim. However, the images have a larger range of body types for males, though none of them would be considered large. Intersectionality further comes into play in regards to race and age, since most of the Google images portray white people in their 20s. The word hipster can be seen as a simulacrum, which is a metaphor that is more powerful than the real-world condition it is supposed to represent. People are now appearing to be hipster by listening to indie music and dressing in thrifty-looking clothing, but they do not necessarily value progressive change like the original hipsters. They take on the look of a hipster because they believe it makes them seem cool. This hipster phenomenon is so powerful because it has taken over the mainstream, especially in urban areas, and companies can now make profit off of the hipster look. Hipsters of today are merely following a trend, which is what most Americans and people all over the world do. They represent the need to have their own identity, but also the desire to fit in. Lumbersexual is the new name for hipster men who look like lumberjacks, with beards and plaid shirts. Before, urban men were often referred to as metrosexual, since they were clean-shaven and wore button-down shirts with narrow ties. Both groups are concerned about their looks, but the lumbersexuals come off as more traditionally masculine and outdoorsy. Lumbersexuals look as though their job is to go out and chop wood all day, although most have never done such a task. Today, the metrosexual is being replaced by the lumbersexual, because hipster men want to take back their masculinity. Their clothing is an example of soma technology, since changing the appearance of their bodies draws a connection between their identity and their masculinity. The term hipster can be confusing, since it represents rejecting and accepting the mainstream at the same time. Depending on if you are looking at the 90s hipster or the ones copying the hipster look, the new hipster subculture, however, is much more focused on defining gender than it was in the 1990s. Women want to be thin because that is what they see in the media, and men are portraying themselves as more masculine by dressing in traditionally masculine clothing. Hipsterdom has transformed into a group that uses its looks and image to portray their values as men and women.